Okay, everybody, welcome to today's session. I'm just gonna check this, the volume, the level. Okay. Okay, great. So I'll most likely be speaking at this volume. Yep, that's good. Okay, good. Nice. Good afternoon. All of you are in PubSoc, right? That's great. Okay, why am I making these jokes? Okay, yes. So, would anyone like to, I don't know, just say what do you want to take away from this session? Anyone? Like, are you excited or something? I see people with cameras already. Are you excited? Boy, I am excited. That's great. That's great. Is there any one thing someone wants to learn? Anyone wants to learn or something?
Oh, you brought this?
Okay, so it's a basic introduction. That's great. Okay, I mean, we all have our first. We all start from somewhere. I also start from somewhere. Okay, great. I'm just gonna slightly adjust this. Great, nice. So, okay, let's begin. My style of like teaching is very casual, honestly. And all my 老教 JC2s, right? They think I'm crazy lah. I think you'll think I'm crazy as well. But then, okay. I think let's proceed. Okay, good. So, I think in terms of multimedia, the backbone of PubSoc work is photography because we still run on traditional media. We still run the print. You know, our main publication is Panorama, so we need a lot of photography. Although in recent years, a lot of interactive video has been very popular in the media world. But we are still, 20 years behind time. But it's okay. It's okay. But that said, photography itself is a skill. So it doesn't mean that just because it's outdated, there is nothing, you can't perfect it. Okay, there isn't any perfection. What am I saying? As in, it can't be a good art form, or it has lost its effectiveness in communicating messages or communicating what you want in a publication. It's just that it's becoming less popular and less relevant because of technological advancements now with social media everything. So that's why photography, don't underestimate it. Okay, does anyone remember or recall seeing this picture? I found this very iconic, and I remembered it was, I think when I was Sec 1 or Sec 2, when I was Sec 1, Sec 2, when I was reading the Time magazine, this was the cover of the Time magazine. And it was really iconic because it is not your normal, typical war photography, combat photography, conflicts in various parts of the world. It is like, it has a sort of human element to it, which I really like, I really appreciate. And it is a very unique shot as well. You don't see this everywhere. No one can recreate that just like by plucking out an idea. So maybe it's like a general rule of thumb. The first thing to note is that a lot of the time is not, if you think that, oh, well, I could take a picture, well, it's so easy to take, right? Anyone could do it, but then you didn't do it. So you really have to take initiative in everything you do in reporting. And this was actually the World Press Photo 2014, the winner, the photo of the year. So there's this organization called World Press Photo. If I'm not wrong, it's Dutch. They published this collection of it's like a competition of like photojournalists' work from around the world into this collection, and they just like publish it. So that won the photo of the year 2014. This one is just another example. It's more independent. It's not that commercial. It's not what you see in the newspapers. It's a personal project by Lam Yik Fei. I don't know how to pronounce it. Probably my tones are wrong. Cantonese has 9 tones. That's why. Yeah, but I'm sure you can see that the photographer has a message in this case, right? Lights. I prefer not. Okay, for the benefit of everyone, right? That's great. It's okay. It's chill. You find out which light is which. Okay, good. It's okay. It's really chill. Yeah. Okay. So, although I got C in lit. Good times. Can any lit student here analyze this photo for me, like on the spot? That's one interpretation. And do you know how does the photographer frame the picture and place the elements? Okay. Anything special? Which parts are bright, which parts are dark? Okay, composition-wise, okay, good. Which supposedly draws the viewer's attention to the people, the people, the everyday people that are walking in underground. I assume it's a subway or something. But that's not the case. Although, like compositionally, in terms of size, the people occupy a much larger part of the frame than Deng Xiaoping. But that is counterbalanced by the exposure. And obviously, everyone else is just like a shadow, whereas the great leader, Chairman Deng, right, is the brightly lit up one. And the irony is that it's not even him in real life. It's a billboard of him. So you can write 4 pages on like artifice and don't know see me parallel, which I still get C anyway. But to me, photography is much easier than lit. So what I'm trying to say is that photography is a medium of communication. Like it or not, whatever form that you see it in. Like for example, in this case, right, it's to be honest, it's quite abstract. Like you don't know what they're doing until you see the caption. They're actually getting mobile signal from another country across the water body, across the sea or something. So it's like standing at Woodlands, trying to get Malaysia Johor 4G because it's cheaper. So that's what they are doing. Yeah, but you wouldn't know that. But it's another form of communication. So Valerie told me that this is like completely 101 course, so asked me to include a bit of technicalities in the whole thing. So has anyone like done photography before? I JC once don't spoil market lah. I see cameras down here. It's AP, right? Oh, okay, cool. Not bad. We always appreciate our brothers and sisters in art. Nice. Okay, no one. So, okay, this part will be quite dry because to be honest, publications-wise, in the context of PubSoc, the artistry is much more important than the technical skill. But then there are certain technical requirements that we set. Like for example, the 300 DPI and everything. Yeah, so you still need to know the technicalities. It is also important for you to navigate your way around your camera, how to use your tools to the fullest potential, that kind of thing, to make the most out of your tools. And technicalities will help you get there. Okay, great. So ISO, okay, honestly this is a very dry part, but it's okay, I'll just go on. Okay, it's the sensor sensitivity. Oh really? It's from AP? Wow, can I have a look? For the benefit of everyone here, because apparently, okay, thanks. Wow, awesome. Did Mr. Ho type this? Is in Helvetica, right? Yeah, it is. It's in Helvetica, very nice. Wow, okay, advanced learner. This one, okay, I'll be teaching that at 4 p.m. to Studio Arden, so it's, yeah. Okay, great. So anyway, I'll start on from the basics for everyone's benefit as well, for those people who like don't have big ass, huge ass cameras right here. Okay, so it's the sensor sensitivity. It officially stands for the International Organization for Standardization. Why is it so? A lot of people ask, why is sensor sensitivity the acronym of in an organization? It doesn't quite make sense. Well, before sensor sensitivity, there was film sensitivity, or what they call film speed. So it's how reactive your silver halide crystals on the film are to light. When the light comes in, then the Ag plus gets reduced to Ag. That's how you get a solid pigment. Yeah, black and white photography works like that. So they translate that in the digital age. ISO tried to standardize everything because Russia had their own system of numbers, America has their own system of numbers, and the economic power say whatever you want. ISO adopted the American one. So if you see any old film that has ASA on it, it's the same as ISO. The main function of ISO is to make the sensor more sensitive or less sensitive to light. So if you're in a very dark situation like at night, your ISO needs to be very high to be very sensitive to pick up light and to extract out, suck the light in essentially. But there's a drawback. As we learn in economics, there's always trade-offs and inherent limitations to everything. So the higher ISO value, the more image noise that you get. What is image noise? Well, okay. Image noise is quite interesting. There is color image noise, which looks like that, which looks like radio static. And there's also luminance noise or black and white noise, which looks like that. If you have Lightroom or Photoshop, there are different options for eliminating both types of noise, but this is just like for you to know what are the drawbacks of having a higher ISO. The higher ISO you have, the more of this you'll get. If you're interested, this is something to do with the signal to noise ratio, but then you can like read it up on yourself. Yeah, okay, good. Then aperture is the second so-called element of the exposure trinity, and is the size of the lens opening, so the hole in your lens. And that can be varied. So that is the aperture blade. Those are the aperture blades. The circle in the middle is the aperture. So the aperture is expressed in a number that is called an f number. So if you see f4, f5.6, f8, okay, all of these are actually they represent the size of the hole in your lens. And how is this calculated? You can read up, okay? So if you let f is be the focal length, d is the diameter of the aperture diaphragm, okay, and k be the f number, you'll realize that d is inversely proportional to k for any random focal length. As k increases, d will decrease, which, if you talk about stops, about a doubling or halving in the amount of light, if you have, assuming a circular aperture, you have to increase the aperture diameter by square root of 2, but multiply it by square root of 2 in order to double the amount of light coming in and out of your camera. Which is why, if you take a look at your camera, can you switch it on? It's 60D, right? Okay, good. APS-C Canon, not bad. It's released in around 2011, 2012, around there, I think. Yeah, switch it on. Okay, do you see? Do you know how to change your aperture? Okay, take a look at the numbers, right? Do the numbers look like ordered in some way? Or what do you see? You want to show everyone? You want to stand up and show it, like, you want to use the visualizer or something? But you just read it out. Just say what numbers you see on your screen. Teaser? Yeah, can. Okay, what are the numbers? As you like scroll through it. Oh no, go start from the smallest number. Then, 2.8, that's good. Okay. Faster. Okay, cool. You learned about doubling or halving the amount of light, right? Which is like in stops. Do you learn like about stops in AP? Like exposure value of stops? Increase it by a stop. Okay, guess what? Look familiar? Yeah, so that's how the aperture number comes about, because it's about a doubling or halving of the amount of light coming in. So you've got to increase or decrease your aperture diagram by square root of 2, so you get random powers of square root of 2. So you see f2.8, you see 2.8 there, you see 3.2 there, right? You see 11 there? Yeah, so that's where your aperture comes about. Yes, FYI, if you did not know. Great. So a smaller f number, okay, this is where many people get it wrong. A smaller f number implies that your aperture is bigger because of the inversely proportional relationship. Okay, don't care about that. Small f number, bigger the hole. Small number, big hole. Big number, small hole. Inverse relationship. But as always, there is a side effect, and that is depth of field. So what is depth of field? Well, it is if you think about depth, right? How much of the scene from the foreground to the background is in focus. So a smaller f number would mean that the hole is small number hole, starts with B. Can you just scream it out? Walao eh. It's big, okay? So a smaller number is a bigger hole. The depth of field, it gets shallower. So you can see only the monkey is in focus, everything else is not in focus. But you have a bigger number, which means that the hole is very good. So then you have a deeper depth of field, which means that more things are in focus. So you won't like focus on some guy's face and then the rest will be blurred. That's if you use a smaller f number. If you use a bigger f number, if you focus on the guy's face, his whole background, everything will be clear. Sorry, yeah. So I know it's really like fast paced, and I have to squeeze in this section. Normally it takes 1.5 hours with my other JC ones, but it's cool. So you understand like where all these numbers come from. So it's not like random, not random at all. Okay, this is honestly an unnecessary word. Okay, you don't need to know that, but I mean, if you hear people talking about bokeh, this is what it means. Use a big aperture, a small f number. You have this kind of like blurry lights in the background. A lot of Instagrammers love this. Honestly, I cannot stand it. but I mean, it's a legit effect. It is an effect. Okay, so this is something to do with the circle of confusion. Wikipedia or Google it if you want. Okay, that's bokeh. Then the last part of the exposure trinity will be the shutter speed, which is the duration of exposure. How long you open up your sensor for the light to come in. How long do you let light to come into your sensor? So in the camera, there is a shutter that blocks the light from your sensor. So the shutter speed is how long that shutter is open. If it opens, the light goes in and hits your sensor and you get a picture. If the shutter stays closed, no light can reach your sensor and you get no picture. So a faster shutter speed, which is actually a shorter amount of time, okay, it freezes motion, such as the sports photo there. So track and field photographers tomorrow, make sure you use a shutter speed of at least 1/400 seconds for the athletes. I think for the athletes, maybe at least 1/640, 640. For the crowd, maybe at least okay, technically at most, but never mind. 1/125 or faster for crowd. Yeah, because they'll be cheering everything, or with the cheering. Maybe you just, so a good rule of thumb would be around 1/400 and above. A faster shutter speed freezes motion, but a slower shutter speed blurs the motion. As you can see in the bottom picture, you can call it it's a light trail. It's done, or what we call a long exposure. It's done when the shutter speed is slow. So you leave the shutter open for a long time, let the light, I don't know what you call it, hit the sensor, collect on the sensor if you think about it that way, and it will form this effect. So of course, it goes without saying, if you open your shutter for a long time, more light goes in and hits the sensor. If you open your shutter for a very short amount of time, not much light goes in. So it means that with a longer or slower shutter speed, you will have a brighter picture. But with a faster shutter speed, you have a darker picture because you restrict the amount of light hitting your sensor. Everything about photography is about light hitting your sensor. And ISO, aperture, shutter speed, they're all variables for you to change the amount of light that hits your sensor. And they have each of their own side effects. You can compensate that, but you must be aware of the side effects. Such as, for aperture, if you have a small aperture, which means a big f-stop number, you will have a very deep depth of field, which means that you don't get a lot of background separation. If I focus on you, using, let's say, f22, the whole of the central plaza can be seen. And the pillar will be like interfering with your head, like the pillar runs through your head and stuff like that, which we don't really like. The opposite of that would be if you use a smaller f number, which means a bigger aperture hole, a bigger hole, and that will make your face very clear, but all the central plaza, all the trees background, okay, all blur. But then you have to weigh the pros and cons of it. A smaller f number, which means a bigger aperture, means more light comes in, and you may risk having your photo be overexposed or too bright, which you must compensate with either ISO or shutter speed. So it's all about compensating the three variables and taking note of their individual side effects. So it's really a balance, and if you practice like a lot, and if it becomes second nature to you, you can do it like on the spot. So you can intuitively know, okay, for this situation, you can close your eyes and you can just like shift the dials and everything, and you know what settings you want to use. Okay, great. And this is not part of aperture. This is not part of exposure, but this is a focal length is essentially the zoom of the camera lens. This is not determined by the camera body, but the camera lens. It is the zoom. A bigger number would imply a more zoomed in picture. So a longer focal length is more zoomed in. A shorter focal length will be more zoomed out. Okay, on top of the distortion, you don't really have to care about that at this stage, because this is pubs out after all. Okay, can anyone guess which one is the longer focal length one and which one is the shorter focal length one? J1s. Which one of these two lenses is the one with the longer focal length? First one, that's right. Usually a longer focal length would mean that the lens is longer, so it's by no means a physical causal relationship, it just happens to be that way. And yeah. So the bottom one is actually 6 mm, if I'm not wrong, 6 millimeters, and the top one is like 400 millimeters. Good, nice, not bad. So this is the effects. These are the effects of different focal lengths. If you have a long focal length, you have something called compression distortion, which means the front and the back, the background, the foreground, the midground, everything is squashed. So you can see that HDB flat, that block, the HDB block. Okay, so you can see the top floors, I don't know, maybe like level 10 and level 4, Level 10 and level 4, you see everything is compressed into this picture, everything is compressed in the plane. You don't see that level 10 is much higher than level 4 is much lower. Everything's all squashed and compressed into this relatively flat image, as opposed to the ultra wide angle, which you can see there's a lot of extension distortion. So things seem more spread out, more spread apart. It exaggerates distance. It exaggerates distance. If you use an ultra wide angle, it exaggerates distance. If you use a telephoto, what's the opposite? It exaggerates. Okay, it makes things look nearer, look closer to each other. Okay, and this is very useful if you want to do more dramatic stuff. Like you want to, I don't know, the guy's nose is at one corner of the photo, the guy's eyes at another corner of the photo. You want to do something like that, then use an ultra wide angle and go way near the person. Then you have achieved that kind of effect. So I'll be raising some examples later on. Okay, basic composition. To be honest, what you formally learn is something like rule of thirds, triangle rule, symmetry, and whatever. Okay, honestly, I don't care about that. The way I should, I just look at visual weight. There's one unifying theory that unites all. Honestly, the thing about like rule of thirds, triangle rule, or symmetry, or whatever, is that people use them without knowing their intentions or not really their effects. People know what effects they produce, but people just use them without any intention in mind, and that is really that's, to be honest, quite irritating, because composition is supposed to add value and add meaning to your photograph, and if you don't have that as the end goal, then there isn't really you can use any composition you want, just anyhow take lah, right? And okay, that's the first thing. So I care more about visual weight. I'll explain this later. And the second one is about eye level shooting, which is very important for portraiture, which I'll again talk about later. I'll give a few examples. So you can see all of these are all the common kind of guides that you see. If you do a photography course elsewhere, this is what you'll probably be learning as well. I have a sort of unified theory of, I have a kind of a unified theory of visual weight. So look at the rule of thirds. I don't really like that. Okay, it kind of depends. If there's nothing in the back, if the background is a plain color, I will not use rule of thirds. Because why? For example, if you're doing a CCA shot at the Central Plaza, that pillar, okay, it doesn't really make sense if you put the person like to one side of the photograph where everything there's nothing else, in the background, everything is just plain. It doesn't make sense. You might as well centralize the person, correct? So rule of thirds only works well, in my opinion, if there's something in the background, if there's some interesting thing, like for example, in that case, you see a landscape in the background. You can see some grass, the sky. Okay, it just not the same thing all over. It can be details, like leaves and flowers. Maybe it can be details like that. Okay, it can be uniform, but it shouldn't be plain. It shouldn't be bland. Okay. As for leading lines, I have this theory of visual weight again. If you go by the rigorous analysis, the formal analysis, okay, the leading lines photo, number one, you have leading lines. Number two, the horizon is on the lower third, the lower horizontal third. The tree is there to offset the symmetry, to make it slightly imbalanced, to add interest to the photograph, blah, blah, blah. The clouds fill in the negative space and the top 2/3. Honestly, I don't care about that. I care about visual weight. So you can see everything is very balanced. Everything is very balanced. So you see the ground, the sky, the tree in the leading lines example. The tree just offsets by just a little bit, but it's not skewed totally at the far edge of the photograph. It's still relatively in the middle. So it's just slightly off-putting, but then that adds interest. It's not overly off-putting. Yeah, so you can just take a look at all these examples and just bear in mind how everything plays a part, how everything just balances and works well together. Just go by your gut feeling, go by your intuition. If the tree is blocking the subject's face or the person's face, right, then there's no point taking the photo, right? So sometimes use common sense. Actually, use common sense all of the time. What am I saying? Yeah. So all of that. And there are overlaps as well, like symmetry and leading lines, it overlaps for the road. So visual weight. Okay. And very important for portraiture, shooting at eye level or having a perpendicular perspective. If you shoot at eye level, you get a normal looking shot. If you shoot from above, if you shoot from above, it has generally two effects. The first effect is that if this guy with this very 欠扁 face right here, okay, he looks like he's trying to confront you. He looks very aggressive. Okay, that's one effect. The other effect would be if the guy is crying. Okay, you will evoke a certain sense of pity. So the viewer is placed in a position of higher or greater power than whoever's in the photograph. So it can work both ways, but sort of high angle. And if you go from a low angle, if you shoot from below, number one, person's jawline would completely disappear and the double chin will appear. So that's not really nice in a portrait. And also secondly, there is a sense that the person is of more power than you, or than the photographer, or from the viewer, when you look at it. So you see that there's some problems with shooting from above and shooting from below. So a good rule of thumb is to always shoot at eye level, unless you're going for dramatic effect. Like if two athletes, they're doing a pose, show the athlete is a big, grand, very, like heroic. Then you shoot from a low angle, the ultra wide angle lens to distort everything and make the sky look so separated. The person like so big in the foreground can do that. But generally, as a rule of thumb, eye level. So always shoot perpendicular. What do I mean by shoot perpendicular? If this is the scene, your lens should point like that, directly in. It shouldn't point like that. You shouldn't shoot from below. You shouldn't shoot from below. You shouldn't shoot from above. You should shoot perpendicular to whatever image plane. No, it's not image plane. Whatever plane that you're shooting. So perpendicular shooting or eye level shooting. And okay, finally, enough of the technicality. It's very dry, right? Yeah. So this is the fun part, or this is actually the more significant part for your work in PubSoc, which is photography in practice. And it's very important to follow the brief of whatever the editors assign to you or whatever Mr. Hathaway says. Because if you lead T, then too bad lah, your photos don't get published and we don't have any photos to complement the article. So every article has a direction. Every story has a direction. Make sure you work with the reporter or the writer about what he or she will write, what is the direction, what is his idea of the story, and make sure your photographs complement that. So number one, follow the brief. Number two, macro and micro, not economics. Capture the big picture as well as the small details. This is very important to get an all-rounded, holistic, as what Chong loves to use, overview of the event. So you don't want everything all like zoomed out and just showing like the whole scene, but what's interesting, then you zoom all the way in. So I'll show examples later on. And also, it's very important in your photographs to get the name, class, and the CCA of the people prominently featured in your photographs. So whoever you take a picture of, ask them for their particulars, ask them for the details. Why is this so? Because you need to write captions for your photos. So it is not the writer's job to write the photograph's captions. It is the photographer's job to write the captions of the photographs. So, okay, great. Generally, there are two types of news, hard news and soft news. So, hard news is very factual. So it's like what event that happened, okay? And soft news is very, I don't know what to say, soft. It is not about factual hard facts and events, not reporting the economy grew by 5%, not something like that, okay? But it's more about featuring people's stories, featuring interesting things, and lifestyle profiles. There's this CEO who, if he or she gets interviewed, okay, and the article that results in all of that will be soft news. So it's not like a hard fact or hard event, okay? A good rule of thumb will be think about it as hard news being events, soft news being about people. Okay, but it can be many things, but you sort of get the idea, right? Okay, for sport news or for breaking news event coverage, essentially, be sure to have macro and micro, very important. What do I mean by this? If you look at last year's, it should be 2017. I'll correct that sometime soon. Okay, wait, is it 2018 or 2017? I also don't remember. Anyway, okay, in the Chinese New Year celebrations, you see I use a wide angle to shoot the overall scene. For medium, I shot a group of people. These are Interact Club people with the elderly from some home that they are associated with. And for the small, I had a portrait profile of an old lady, but I did not ask for her details. That's very, very sad. I should have, after I took this shot, I should have gone up to her and have a conversation with her. How has your experience how was your experience like working with the Hwa Chong students? Did they come over to visit you? Stuff like that. And I should get down the particulars of this person, but I did not do that. So that was a pity. So this shot is effectively useless because no caption will be there. I mean, what's the caption? An old lady walks in Hwa Chong. It doesn't make sense, right? So there's no meaning, there's no depth in that. So it's a wasted shot, unfortunately, for what? Yeah, damn it. It's very sad, it's very sad. But you get the idea of large, medium, small. Okay, great. So you can do extra large, extra small. It depends on the story again. If you want to go extra large, you can capture the whole scene, not just the whole scene. This shows the whole scene in the context, grounded in the Chinese New Year celebrations context, with the cloth draping, and then with the stage, with the city gate and everything, with the crowd. Okay, for this slightly less intimate. Somehow it has something to do with the focal length as well. But for the XL photo, you don't feel as intimate as with this large photo. You feel like you are in the scene. You're at the Chinese New Year celebration. You're enjoying it with everybody. You're soaking in the atmosphere. For XL, you're more like an observer view, sort of like you're distanced away from the scene, I guess. Okay, this is because the XL uses a longer focal length than the L. Okay, so technicalities, yeah. But anyway, so long as it's very hard for me to describe it to like as a 101 crash course, but you sort of get the idea, I hope. Sometimes it's good to have XL and XS, but it really depends on what's the use of it. If you can't think of a use for XL or XS, then don't go that far. Don't go that far. Just stick with large, medium, and small. And needless to say, you don't go all overboard lah. If you go XSL, XS, honestly, it won't come out in panorama. Okay, great. So that's macro and micro. The second bit to know about spot news is to embed yourself in the action. It's very important because it engages your viewer. When your viewer looks at the photograph, the viewer feels that the viewer is part of the scene. Okay, my self-criticism here, I chopped his arm off, which is a really, really bad thing to do. At least I didn't chop him off at his joints. So another rule of thumb, don't chop people off at the joints. If you're cutting the frame, right, you don't cut here, it's very weird. Cut someone here, okay? Same goes with the waist, the knees, the feet, everything. Don't cut people off at the ankles, don't crop them off at the ankles. It really sucks. Capture the whole body if you want in that case. So embed yourself in the action and just shoot the hell out of it. Have fun. Honestly, go crazy with them. So this is for Apollo at POP. This was honestly quite an impromptu shot. I thought of it. Hey, Apollo will be using finger lights, right? So why not? Why don't I do a long exposure? So if I'm not wrong, this photograph, the shutter speed was 2 seconds. 1 or 2 seconds. 1 or 2 seconds. So it's quite long. So it's not 1/500. If there's 1/500, which you should be using at track and field tomorrow, everything will be very clear. But you can see the streaks of light. Some people's faces are blurred because they moved. Okay, that's what you get with longer shutter speeds. But at the same time, of course, the building doesn't budge, so that's why the building stays clear. Okay, great. And Pangs Bang, just take yourself in the action. Honestly, be daring enough, be bold enough to get up front and just like, don't be scared. Don't like retreat far away and then zoom in all the way. Get into it. Okay, go near and get your job done essentially. Okay, and for context and composition, another good tool is context and composition. And it's an interplay between context and composition, because context informs your composition and composition affects what context you choose to include in the first place, which is a form of selection. And for example, honestly, you're very lucky to be in Hwa Chong, because anything with a clock tower inside screams Hwa Chong. You don't need to have a caption taken in the Hwa Chong institution. Any photograph with the clock tower inside already says that it was taken in Hwa Chong. Contrast that, okay, with some random secondary school. If you take a photo in their parade square or in their classroom, like, there's nothing to say that, where is this from? So another good rule of thumb to think about, another good guideline to think about is that you want to show, not tell. You don't want captions to tell your story. The photograph alone should tell the viewer, should engage the viewer, and should tell the viewer the necessary information for the viewer to process through everything. So honestly, it's very easy. Include the clock tower in any Hwa Chong, thing, and you will get a Hwa Chong photo. It doesn't have to be the clock tower though. It can be words, text, posters, banners, Hwa Chong logo. If it's Hwa Chong logo, if someone drew the Hwa Chong logo on this whiteboard, and you just you maybe do a rule of thirds, put the person on the right side, and with leaving the Hwa Chong logo slightly blur in the background on the left 2/3 of the photograph, you can do that. It again informs the viewer that it is a photograph taken in Hwa Chong. So play around with the spaces that are not in focus. I know the main focus is on the person, but with the rest of the picture that is not the person, make use of it. Don't waste the space. Even you must use every single inch of the frame. So for example, in this photograph, which I did not eventually select, I took quite a few photographs of this. I think 6 or 7 shots of the same scene. But I did not choose this. If those people who follow me on Instagram, they know I did not choose this. Why? Number one, this was an initial attempt to have some sort of context to insert some form of context into my photograph, especially with the quote behind there. But there's one big problem. What is Dr. Hon looking at? What are those people looking at? Are they looking at you? Am I trying to break the fourth wall or something? No, I mean, it's very weird. And Dr. Hon is a sort of judgmental look. And there's nothing he seems like he's looking into air, like staring into nothing. Okay, and that shouldn't be the case. It looks very weird. It looks, especially for the viewer, it's very confrontational, which is bad. This will not get selected for panorama. Okay, but the good thing is that I had the context in the background already. Dr. Hon's retirement, okay, he didn't explicitly say that quote as like a word of advice for future generations of Hua Chongians, but I just included that because it's kind of nice, with the whole 饮水思源 thing, with the corporate agenda. Okay, it's very important to know what the school wants to market. Okay, imagine yourself as being a PR agent for the school. That informs the way you take photographs. So I inserted these two people in. So number one, it's clear. Dr. Hon is looking at the performance and not straightly at the viewer. So I separate the viewer from the midground by inserting something in the foreground. So okay, it's another technique which is shooting through something. You add separation if you shoot through something. So if you shoot through these two people, you're separating the viewer and Dr. Hon. Whereas in this case, there is no separation between the viewer and Dr. Hon. The viewer looks through to Dr. Hon. Okay? And secondly, I still managed to get the quote in, which is quite nice. So I don't know whether this made it for panorama, but this certainly made it to my Insta feed, which is carefully curated by yours truly. Yeah. And also, we don't call articles stories for no reason. So there should be a flow in your photography. Most of the time, a single photo won't be shown. It will be a series of photos, which is why we like photo series. We don't like single photographs. We like a series of photos because that tells a story. Because again, photography is a medium of communication. And flow is very important. If you look at Dr. Hon's farewell, right, I'm using all my pictures here because I don't infringe copyright. Yeah. Dr. Hon and his beloved buggy, so it had the steering wheel. With the visual weight of the first photo, I balance it out. The lady, which is she's an admin clerk, she has a little bit of weight in the background, and with the steering wheel with a little bit more weight, but it's not human, so it has lesser visual weight, with Dr. Hon having the greatest height in the whole picture. So if you go by formal analysis, there is a triangle relationship. So if you look at my mouse cursor, from here, this point to this point to this point, there is a triangle. So there's also a triangle rule, which it all boils down to visual weight, I think, which then proceeds on to Dr. Hon and his buggy. Okay, that photograph shows many things in one photograph. Number one, clock tower. You can see the school logo and the clock tower over here. So, and also on the buggy. And 661, does anyone know why it's 661? You don't know? What's Hua Chong address? 661 Bukit Timah Road. So that's intentional. So I included that in the photograph because again, it adds context. It grounds the photograph in context. If not, you don't know what you're looking at. It doesn't have any information. It doesn't have any meaning. It doesn't have any depth. And I included the people cheering at the sides, flanking both sides for Dr. Hon to pass through. So there are many elements in the photograph. And if you realize the buggy's weight is distributed or is balanced by the people in the clock tower, which have just a slightly little bit of presence in the left edge. So if you look at it, if you're an H2 art student, right, you look at actually two lines which form an X. So this is the vanishing point. Look at my cursor, this is the vanishing point. You see from the feet all the way up to the trees, there is this line. Okay, there's this line going up here. There's another line going from the clock tower down, past the wheels of the buggy. So they intersect here, which is the vanishing point. So if you take a formal art analysis, this is what you'll get, but honestly, just care about visual weight. I have a unified theory for everything, which is reductionism, and that's bad. And I got so damn tilted by reductionism. Don't remind me. Never mind. Okay, moving on to the next photograph. Showing the progression of the, should I say procession? Nah, okay, I don't want to skip the connotation, procession. So, okay, the progression of the story from Dr. Horn coming in, this is greeting some staff, some old-time staff, lab workers, EAS, non-teaching staff, etc. Eventually watering the plant, then going to the ISH, eventually the family photo. So there's a flow to it. So don't shoot photographs like randomly. Have certain elements of the story, certain angles of the article that you want to show, and make sure that you cover those photographs, okay? And for long form, okay, I'll just touch on very briefly into this. Portraiture is the staple of feature photojournalism. Inspiring excellence, you'll get this from A-level results. For this, I did slightly a bit of rule of thirds, but I didn't exaggerate it too much, slightly off balance. But I want to frame him with these branches on this left, so it forms this, okay, this like cave or whatever you call it, this arc around him. So it frames Yoshun there. I shot it from slightly below perpendicular to make him look a bit more elevated and to give a bit of power to him so that he looks like a scholar. So I give a bit of power to him. I don't want to go all the way down. I just slightly, maybe around like 2 degrees down. So you have a slight sense that he's like confident and like grand, of a higher stature, which he is godly, I agree. Yep, and I separate him with the background because the background is predominantly green and his features are predominantly yellow and white and stuff. So that's how my approach to it. And that's pure portraiture, but there's also environmental portraiture. Again, going by the visual weight thing, you see that this man is very prominent, whereas I have a little bit of this mountain in the background just to balance it off. If this whole thing was sky, it looks very odd because this guy is thrown off balance. I need something down here to balance him. Okay, which I include the mountain. This environmental portraiture, shooting portraits in their own natural working environment or whatever. So this is he's a shop owner, so he has a shop in this cave. In this, I think it's like a small cove or bay called Ham Tin Wan in Hong Kong. Quite cool. So it's like Pulau Ubin lah. Think of it in a Singapore context. He's Pulau Ubin. Quite cool, quite a cool guy. And also we have studio portraiture. You get this a lot with Time magazine because you get this a lot with a lot of magazines. You need a lot of studio portraiture, and studio lighting is a whole nother topic and it's with its own technicalities as well. So I won't be talking about that. Just to show you that there are different kinds of portraiture: pure portraiture, environmental portraiture, and studio portraiture. Oh, interesting. I don't know who wants to follow me, but it's okay. Okay, great. And with long form or soft news, you can afford to be more artistic. By right, you shouldn't have motion blur. By right, you should have 1/500 shutter speed and above, which is what you should do tomorrow at the track finals. But I screw that. Honestly, I don't care about that. Because why? I want to emphasize that there is motion, there is activity, there is action. If not, it'll be very weird. Can you imagine if people doing rock you, okay? And I freeze them in motion, then they're feet above the ground and they're doing this. You know how weird that looks? So my main focus is not on the people themselves. My main focus is on the action. So I don't care about why so many people want to follow me. So I want to emphasize the action. So I cropped out their heads and their necks, but I'm allowed to do that because like artistic license. Yeah, so I wanted to emphasize the action by blurring it. Also for sort of long form, this is a personal project I shot in Vietnam on the HP Vietnam trip. I call it Analogs. So I have a couple of series of land and sea. You got black and white and color. Again, so you can afford to be more artistic in like showing a story. Can I do a story? I'm gonna ignore the Instagram request, okay? Macro and micro again. This was a series I did called Charlie. I did it last year. It shouldn't be 2018, it should be 2017. I did it last year. Again, large, medium, small. I show this man. Okay, basically this man is called Charlie Wong. That bathtub is his. So he shipped a bathtub to this open Sembawang hot spring and just put it in a corner and just call it his. It's public space, but called it his own, which is quite cool. So large, wide angle shot showing the trees and the nature, everything with him, Charlie, just a little bit in the bottom right corner, a little bit of him. Before I move into medium, what he normally does, soaks in his bathtub, he adds lots of exotic herbs and whatever. Fei Zhou Cao, I don't even know what that is. He just adds it into the bathtub and that is hot spring water he's soaking in. Then I move on to the small. which I focused on the passion fruit and the noni fruit. Okay, those are the round things are passion fruit, and the small little seeds, they are noni fruit seeds. He puts them into the water, because he says it has medicinal properties. I don't know whether it's true or not, but that's what he does. So I zoom in. So I have a macro, micro, zoom in, zoom out. I guess it's the same for poetry, which honestly I'm in no position to comment about because I got a C. But there is a macro kind of structure to a poem, and you have to go word, like line by line, word by word, to extract out the small parts. Macro, micro, macro, micro. Okay. Again, there is a flow. 老塞桃园 Teochew Opera Troupe. I also covered this. So note that there is the flow. Okay, it's a dying business, so which is why I have that evening shot down there. So every picture has a sort of meaning and a sort of angle that you want to have in a story. Okay, I don't know whether I have time for this. Okay, I'll just go through this quickly because it is after a multimedia journalism. I don't want to just talk about photography all the time. So let's talk about videography. Videography follows the same things. If you're interested in video, I mean, you can come look for me, but I'll show you an example of Charlie, which I filmed. It's of this weird guy called Charlie Wong.
奇妙的恩典让我有得着美好的新生命，我永远歌颂，我永远赞美你那奇妙的恩典。哦，主，你那奇妙的恩典，奇妙的恩典让我有得着美好的新生命，我永远歌颂。我永远赞美你那奇妙的恩典，哈利路亚！本身我的名叫查理翁，然后本身是做义工，我是 Vision Counselor， 然后本身今年已经61岁了。以前我是朋友介绍，听人家说这边有一个温泉的地方，然后我就来用祈祷车来这边找这个地方。我通常一个星期来3天这样。3天这样，有时候星期2、星期3、星期5。
Okay, sorry to cut the fun short. Sorry to cut the fun short, but yeah, if you want to look at it, you can YouTube it. It's public. You can search NYFA 2017 Charlie, or you go. Yeah. So it was a documentary that I shot last year with a few friends. So yeah, so video can also tell stories, not just photography, and increasingly. We are seeing more video being used in social media and stuff, so feel free to explore video if you want to. I think Inside Out. I don't know whether we can accommodate video for Inside Out, but I mean, it's online, so I mean, there shouldn't be any limitations to it. Okay, very important for writers, especially audio. By right, you should use a recorder, professional, 24-bit, 48 kilohertz, like what I'm recording right now on this microphone. But of course, no one has this gear, so by left, you can use your iPhone. So you see one right, one left, right, by right, by left. Right? Great. Yes, so feel free to record your phone, but of course, please ask for permission. Don't anyhowly come and record. And also note down the main elements of the discussion. Do a mind map, do some scribbling or something. The recording is mainly just for you to refer back to extract quotes, exact quotes, so you don't get blamed for misquoting people. But where to find them, you just you can note down which time, what's the timestamp, how many seconds, how many minutes of recording, talk about what. You can just draw some scribble, some mind map, details, particulars. Again, same name, age, occupation if you're outside, name, class, CCA if you're in Hua Chong. Okay, standard stuff. Write and draw. Feel free to scribble around. Always have a notebook with you, like journalists staple. Have a notebook and pen. Record the audio recording, and you refer back when you're writing an article. Or even if you're doing subtitling, which you already have or if you have, if you're writing a photo caption, just remember the exact quotes, note it down. Okay, yes, any questions? Okay, great, thank you. Okay, nice, so that's part 1.